where I co-host. We bring a co-host into these sessions and just have a conversation around the subject of interest. Today, our subject of interest is festival tourism. And my co-host today is Dr. Marta Soligo, actually Professor Marta Soligo from University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Marta, I know you will tell us right now you are visiting with another university, but she is a researcher. I think she's interested in unique areas of tourism, like film tourism. And now we're talking festival tourism. She's done some research in festival tourism as well, trying to understand heritages and cultures behind different celebrated tourism events. So we're going to have a conversation around festival tourism. I will open this by repeating what I said a few minutes ago. When we think about festivals and think about communities, we look at celebrations, we look at activities and events that were organized for celebration. They were organized to address something within the community. And I said earlier on that we all know very well that many African communities had the rain festivals, they had harvesting festivals. I know of one, I don't know whether there's somebody from my community here. There's a very interesting festival that used to happen with the Ma community, and not mega, because today we have come to think of festivals as mega events, but traditionally conventional festivals hosted by communities did not have to be mega events. And I always think about this festival or events amongst the Ma community that celebrated women who had infertility issues. And these women would gather at a certain time of the year. They would dress in a particular way. They would carry a particular bag. And in that bag, if you met them on the way, you would give them a gift. And they would go to villages with older people. And in those, every time they stopped at a village, they will be celebrated and they will be blessed because they were looking for the older people in society to bless them, to give them a blessing. And also for me, when I look at a festival like that, I look at that festival as a festival of acceptance. I look at it as a festival of inclusion. Yeah, that there was a way in which the society used festivals for inclusion. They used festivals to celebrate diversity. They used, and when I say celebrate diversity, I remember my mother saying that there used to be African wrestling. And she was so strong. Those who have met me know that I am tall, but my mother was tall and big. I am tall and lean. And she would wrestle men, and they feared her. But this festival would happen between from her village and a village across Lake Victoria, which was in Uganda. So there was also the sharing of diversity of cultures. Just bringing festivals used to bring peace to communities as a way of acknowledging one another through sports. So there was festivals that were around sports. We know that fire was used extensively in many African festivals, right? It was used in different kinds of festivals to exemplify, to bring life, yeah. And those who would sit around the fire, it wasn't a fireplace for everybody. Today we use the bonfire in tourism, yeah, but we don't tell the story behind bonfires and what they were used for in the African society. I could go on and on around the different aspects of cultural, of festivals, and how they were used. And I'm really trying to restrict myself to the African context. The other thing that I wanted to bring out, which I said earlier on, was that festivals were self-financing. Today we have commercialized them, that if we don't have a sponsor, then we can't hold a festival. And in a festival, the greatest definition of a festival today is actually trade. Everybody comes with a space and a stall and sells something and promotes something. Like I'm at the Festec Africa in Kisumu. The biggest location of this festival in Mamboleo Stadium is nothing but a continuation of hundreds of traders trying to sell different things. And I asked myself, is that a festival? Is that the definition of an African festival? I know there has, on the first day, there were dances here and there and music to open it and traditional music. But then I ask myself, as I'm here in Kisumu at Festic, I'm saying to myself, what are we celebrating? We are celebrating our Africanness, our oneness. We are African people, despite where we are. So what is it that defines us as African people, irrespective of where we are? And that should be the core of the festival. But Marta, over to you now. I could go on and on around festivals, because I've looked at it recently, and it's fascinating, and I relate it to examples that I have come across in terms of festivals and what they were used for in the traditional communities. They were not used for only entertainment, because today we do trade and we do a lot of entertainment. And at the end of the day, we ask ourselves, for what value was that festival? Marta, over to you.
Thank you
Welcome
so much.
everybody who has joined us. We appreciate you.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. So thank you, Judy. I'm always happy to be here with you all. So I'm Marta Soligo. I'm originally from Italy. I work in Las Vegas. I'm an assistant professor in the College of Hospitality here at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And I'm also Director of Tourism Research for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Office of Economic Development. And as Judy was saying, I'm also a visiting professor in Bergamo at the University of Bergamo in Italy. So once a year, online, I teach to the Italian students. I'm a sociologist of tourism, so my PhD is in sociology, and I like to say that I put tourism usually under the microscope to understand, this phenomenon from several perspectives. So I'm very happy to be here today and talk about festival tourism, which I think is very important. And I will bring you some insights from very small festivals that I've been studying for research, mainly film festivals. And Judy knows I'm a film tourism person, so I study a lot of film tourism. And with STTA, we already did like a workshop one time on film tourism. So that's one of my main areas of study. But let's see some example, not really for the content of the festival, but for the structure and the impacts on the tourism systems. And then let's ask some questions, because festivals can be very good, but can also be very problematic. And so I would like to share some case studies, especially two that I conducted in very small destinations, meaning not big impact destinations, not Rome or Florence or Venice or Las Vegas, but then we're going to talk about Las Vegas a little bit too, and Los Angeles, but the areas I'm analyzing are pretty small. So let's start. I'm going to share my slides, and please feel free to ask questions if you have any questions. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. So let's start with the case study, I'm a researcher, so all I do is to conduct research, mainly qualitative research, meaning I'm an ethnographer. I spend months and years on the field usually. So usually when I talk about my research, it's not statistics, but it's more interviews, observations, focus groups, and so on, very qualitative. So let's start with film tourism, right? I cannot help talking about film tourism. So film tourism is usually part of, when we define film tourism, is tourism in the destination where a movie was filmed, right? For example, I live in Las Vegas. Very popular movie filmed in Las Vegas was The Hangover, and people still go to the resort Caesar's Palace after more than 10 years, 15 years probably, yeah, maybe more, the movie got released to see the locations where the movie was filmed. Often with Judy, we talk about the Lion King in Kenya, right, as a potential destination. So we really see that people like to travel where the movies are filmed. But film tourism is not only that. So we see that movies really are a big tool to bring tourists to a destination. Can be not only for the location, but also, for example, for movie museums. We are seeing in Hollywood that they have plenty of museums with the costumes used by, I don't know, superhero movies or whatever. But also festivals are a big driver for tourism. And when I started studying film tourism, I did that in Lecco, which is a small town. It's a small town in Italy. And I was working, and I'm still collaborating with their film office. Okay, so usually every country, and also sometimes cities, have a film office, which is the bridge. Is usually a non-profit. Is the bridge between movie productions and the destinations. For example, think of Italy. And this, I'm telling you a true story, right? We have a Chinese production from China who wants to film in Lecco, this small town beautiful small town on the Lake Como, close to Milan. The Chinese production doesn't speak the language, say, okay, I need to film in the middle of the city and we have to stop traffic for an entire afternoon. What can we do? We don't speak the language. So the Film Commission has that role of basically helping the community and the film production being a bridge. And the Film Commission does endless things, right? From helping with the permits to ensuring sustainability and make sure that the production is behaving in the right way, to be a mediator between angry locals who need to drive by that street on that day, but everything is stuck for the movie productions. So that's one of the things that we really like to do with and usually is film commissions are non-profit, and for example, the one where I'm in Nevada, in the state of Nevada right now, and the Nevada Film Office is under the Office of Economic Development. So is on the state level. Lecco Film Commission, the one that I'm mentioning today, is on the city level, the city of Lecco. So it's not printing. There is a typo in my slide. I'm sorry. We should be promoting local workforce. So the idea was this one. So the idea was to create festivals in Lecco that could help the community. How? What we really care about in Lecco, with the Lecco Film Commission, was okay, you are a movie production, you want to come to Lecco to film. Do you really, let's say, like an American movie production, do you want to hire someone, I don't know, do you need like a camera operator? Why don't you hire this camera operator from Lecco instead of bringing him or her from the US, right? Right. So the idea was to develop local workforce through movies and movie productions. And our festivals, usually that we try to organize, and they were not super big, but we always try to organize festivals that could promote the local workforce. So local filmmakers, especially young. We have a very good film school in Milan, which is very close to Lecco. And our idea was, okay, let's get these young people who are just starting and need a job. Let's create a display, a big display for these young people to show their movies. So this is what we try to do, right? So we try to create festivals that could promote simply screen their movies. Sometimes they were like short movies, short films, 5 minutes. Sometimes were longer movies. And that was very interesting because it really helped us not only to promote the local workforce when it comes to movies. And always remember, when it comes to movies, you're not only basically promoting filmmakers, but you're promoting the store that has the cameras that the young people rent, and you promote the local screenwriters and local actors and actresses, or local dance school, because maybe they participate in the production. So you promote a series of people, and at the same time you bring tourists to the destination. I remember before the festivals, we were all going to the restaurant, right? So you promote the local restaurant. You promote, as I will tell you later, I always like to see at tourism in terms of, look at tourism in terms of systems. So this was one of the things we were doing, but also the idea was, these are two movies that are filmed in the area of Lecco. Lecco has a beautiful lake, but also beautiful mountains. And these are two movies that were filmed by our filmmakers they were filmed in the mountains in the location of Lecco. So the idea was to also participate in other festivals to promote on-location tourism. So we were going to the festival in Milan, we were going to the festival in other towns to screen, to have special screening of those movies. And what was interesting is that I was traveling with the filmmakers as the film commission representative. So we were going to Milan, show this movie, and say, you know what, these locations that you just saw in the movies are very beautiful. You should come and visit Lecco. You should see how beautiful it is. This was my speech, right? Every time I was going there, I was promoting the location. And that was giving also a very interesting overview on, again, let's not forget that when tourists participate in a festival, one of the main things that I conducted research on, especially when I was a student at the University of Bergamo in Italy, we were studying the impacts on restaurants. It was very interesting because festivals are very long. Sometimes they start in the morning and they end late at night. So restaurants have, like, the surrounding restaurants need to be ready to have so many people in the location. So that was a very interesting impact. Hotels too. Another very important impact. So that was something that was very interesting to study. And I remember when I was traveling with the filmmakers, I remember telling the audience, these movies, we were in places that did not, sometimes they knew the place, they knew the city of Lecco, but it's lesser known than other bigger cities in Italy. And we're saying, these movies, that was my sentence, these movies have two protagonists. One is the people, the protagonists in the movie, but two, the locations, right? So it was a great way to promote those destinations. Also, when I moved to Las Vegas, I became part of the Italian Cultural Center in Las Vegas. So we were a group of Italian people who decided to create a Italian Cultural Center in Las Vegas. So what did I do? After a while, I decided to have a 3-day festival dedicated to Lecco in Las Vegas. So we were a nonprofit, so we didn't have money, basically, that much money. So we collaborated with a local library who gave us their very beautiful theater for free, because this is a cool thing you can do in libraries. You can get a book, a room for free, beautiful like movie theater style. And I ask our young filmmakers in Lecco to make an effort and to put subtitles in English in their movies. Was a big effort, but for 3 days in Las Vegas, we displayed those movies with subtitles in English. And it was very interesting because people came to me and to the American audience. And when we were done, and in one case, the filmmaker was able to come to Las Vegas. So he came to Las Vegas and introduced with me their own movie. That was very interesting. What happened that night? First of all, a bunch of people came to me and say, "Hey, those locations are beautiful. Where is the closest airport if we want to go from Las Vegas?" So I was like, "Okay, that works, amazing." And the other thing is that actually it was a pretty interesting festival, to the point that the staff of the Italian Institute of Italian Culture of Los Angeles, which is the world capital of the movie industry, came to Vegas, to Las Vegas for that event. So we had the director of the Italian Cultural Institute of Los Angeles, who saw the movie, she liked it, and proposed to one of our Lecco filmmakers to screen his movie in Los Angeles in their own festival. So that was pretty big. We were very happy because, once you screen your work in Los Angeles, just as a line on the CV, on the resume, is very important, right? It's Los Angeles. So that was great. So also creating connection. And again, always let's think that when people come to a festival, usually they don't just go to the theater and then go back home. They stop in the local restaurant. So there is also an impact on the destination. Now, I'm going to talk about another case study. And I use the concept that I know a very dear friend of STTA and a very dear colleague of mine, Marina Novelli, uses, like niche tourism, understanding festivals also as niche tourism. So I'm going to talk about another case study. This case study is the neighborhood of Highland Park in Los Angeles. Don't think of Hollywood, okay? Don't think of like the Malibu, Santa Monica. Highland Park is a lesser known neighborhood in Los Angeles, between downtown and Pasadena, really rich in history. Some of the most historic locations in Los Angeles where the city was born are in that area. But not that many people know about Highland Park. It's a neighborhood that for sure doesn't have the tourists that Hollywood has, or Santa Monica has, or Venice Beach. And it was considered, and it still is, a disadvantaged neighborhood, meaning that was 70% immigrants, especially of Hispanic origins, so mainly from Mexico, immigrants. And until 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 15, it was considered a dangerous neighborhood. It also had this stereotype. People from Los Angeles didn't go there, okay, to the restaurant. They did not go. But the community realized that it was a shame, because it was very, very important, was one of very important happenings happened there. Historic happenings happened there concerning the history of Los Angeles. As you see, there is like a picture here with the historic buildings. Those are a museum that has like reproduction of Victorian style houses, and is also very important kind of heritage for the Latinx community, the Hispanic community. So when I arrived there to conduct research more than 10 years ago, they were really looking to see what kind of attractions can we revitalize to bring people to this neighborhood. Of course, I always warn them, you don't want too many people, but let's start with small numbers. So they were promoting a series of events more on the niche side rather than on the mass side that were trying to bring people to this neighborhood and have them know about this rich history. And one of the most successful events was the Lamis Days Festival that takes place every year in June. I think Lamis is the person, you see a building in the first big picture in the back. That's a historic building, was the house of Lamis, who was very important for the history of Los Angeles, was one of the, some people even say, thanks to him, Los Angeles exists. So, and his house is in Highland Park. He used to live in Highland Park, and they have a museum in his house now, and they do a festival there with different kinds of arts that represent multicultural and heritage from different places. So you have the Mexican dance, and you have poetry, and you have artists. And it's very interesting because it's becoming a very big attractor, not only for people who are not from Highland Park, so Los Angeles at large, but also for tourists and for the community. It's a very it's a community that had some issues and still has. We cannot deny that. There are issues with young people, gang violence. One of the main role of community stakeholders was what can we do to have kids, convince kids to go to school and stay in school and don't drop out of school. So these events also, when I was talking with the organizers for my research, we're really trying to get those parts of the community that usually don't go to festivals, or maybe they do not speak English, right? They only speak Spanish, so then they are excluded from the activities, right? So how can we include them displaying some kind of their own heritage, which is so important in this community as immigrants? So that was one of the things that they did. And the other festival that I conducted research on was the Highland Park Independent Film Festival. It was a new festival. It was in the Highland Theater, and this is a key location. So as I told you, unfortunately, Highland Park experienced a period of decline, and the lights of the Highland Theater were, turned off at some point, and the Highland Theater was almost abandoned, basically. So I remember when I arrived there to conduct research first, you saw this big sign in the middle of the neighborhood, and everyone was pointing at that and saying, oh, there are rumors that they are bringing it back, that we're going to see the lights again on that sign. And it was great, because at some point they started. And they also had this film festival, which is really interesting because the theater is very small. It's a very small theater, but was able to create a sort of identity for the city. And filmmakers from all over the world went to Highland Park, submitted their movie to Highland Park Independent Film Festival. So that was a good idea also to put, and filmmakers, they are tourists too, right? When they come to festivals, if I present, maybe the filmmakers from Italy, it was a little bit far, but if you're a filmmaker from Mexico, if you're a filmmaker from Canada or from another state, you travel and you get to know Highland Park because you're there to show your movie. So this, it was very interesting how it was used as a location for a festival, for a big revitalization process. And the location itself, these lights that were constantly off of the sign Highland Theater, now the community was very happy to see the lights on that sign. Issue. This is the moment the sad moment. Unfortunately, and I think some of you might be already thinking about it, Highland Park is a very tricky situation, meaning that Highland Park is a very beautiful neighborhood. It experienced a period of decline, and things are not perfect there, but the community has to be careful because there are some risks, in particular gentrification. So all these revitalization processes from the community, which are great, and the community was very proud, brought Highland Park on the tourist map of Los Angeles. Not only tourist map, but residence map, meaning that at some point, I remember I went there for a while, then I went back to Italy, and I went back a year later, and some of the businesses that I knew got, I don't want to use the term kicked out, but almost, because the area was becoming very popular, and their rent for their store, like the hair salon, increased like crazy. And several Hollywood people and labels were moving to Island Park because it was cheaper and beautiful, and it was becoming, now they have art exhibitions, they have festivals, more festivals, they have art galleries, they have stores, new stores coming in. So it's always great when these things happen, but also we have to think that there is a side that can be not that great. The development of Highland Park became one of the most important examples of gentrification in the United States. Not only Los Angeles, but in the United States. Sometimes you open, like, I don't know, the New York Times or other very important outlets, and you read about Highland Park there and the gentrification problem. The community is not happy. Some people had to leave. Some businesses had to leave. As you know, with gentrification, the prices of the houses go up, the prices of the products go up. So for the community, it's an issue. So it's always important to balance, right? Balance these great opportunities for the community and the area, such as the Highland Park Independent Film Festival that I show you, the Lammis Days, that was a festival trying to include the community, with the balance with a neighborhood that is becoming increasingly popular and can have important issues in that sense. So I show you two case studies. They were pretty niche, pretty micro level, pretty small, but as you know, I'm a researcher, right? So I like to define myself as a both micro sociologist and macro sociologist, meaning that while I conduct ethnography, meaning that I go, for example, in Highland Park, and I analyze on the micro level every single interaction between the festival people and the filmmakers, or conversations among the community, or I spend hours in a location. So kind of micro research. I also like to focus on the macro level, right? Because tourism is an interesting micro phenomenon, interactions with the community, but also on the macro is an international phenomenon. Like I just started teaching a new class of international tourism here in Las Vegas. It's very interesting, but it shows how big is it, right? It is. So on the macro level, I'm seeing increasingly issues, such as the question, when it comes to festivals, are destinations ready? This is a question that is very interesting. So I often see, and I'm talking about a moment in history where I hear the word over tourism probably 20 times a day, right? From media, from on TV and so on, because it's becoming very, very, very popular. And it's a big issue, as we know. So sometimes I see small destinations, right? Maybe I talk with some small town, politician or stakeholder, whatever. And they tell me, well, you are a tourism professor. Do you have any suggestions when it comes to our little town? I don't know, in the middle of Italy is beautiful, but we don't have any tourists because the destination, but because we are not known, right? We are not Rome, we are not Florence, we are not Venice. What should we do to bring here a bunch of tourists? Because we are so beautiful and we want thousands of tourism. Why don't we do a festival? Why don't we do a festival that brings here a bunch of people and we are finally known and we're gonna be rich? And I'm like, maybe you don't want tourism at this stage. And they look at me super weird and they are like, are you sure? Why? You're a tourism expert. You should love tourism. And I was like, I love tourism. I dedicated all my life to tourism. But do you have enough parking for your locals? Parking spots, literally, for your locals? No, not really. Do you have the infrastructures to welcome? Do you have enough restaurants and enough to not create chaos? And in the end, the tourists are not happy. The locals are not happy. Do you have that kind of infrastructure? And they are like, no. Okay, so work on that first, work on the community first, and then host the festival. Because as Judy was saying, festivals can be mega events, and in that case, can become a little bit tricky. And I see that all the times. And I see that especially in small towns, but not only, increasingly, and I come from a country, Italy, that is full of very beautiful small towns, and festival is the big trend. The locals are not happy. I mean, the locals, they don't know, they don't know where to park their own car when a festival is in town. Restaurants are full. The quality of the residence is really miserable. So because the destination is not ready, it's not ready. So sometimes I'm also conducting research, as you know, as I just explained in Highland Park, in disadvantaged community in communities in the United States. Sometimes we are working on a project right now in Las Vegas, and it's important to understand that before tourism, you need to take care of the community, right? Because if the community is not ready doesn't have the infrastructure for themselves, there are neighborhoods in the US that are considered food desert when there is no access to affordable and healthy food, or there are no pharmacies. Young people don't have point where they can meet and have a healthy childhood. And you don't want to develop tourism, a top-down form of tourism on top of that. As I always say, think of the community first. Have a healthy community, and then you see the tourists will come in a healthy way. And unfortunately, when it comes to festivals, I'm seeing so many articles and case studies, and I'm very familiar with those, where you just see that the community is not ready. And I'm proposing a new term lately, which is the day after newspaper letter. What does it mean? It means that it happens sometimes that destinations organize a festival or an event, and it can be tricky. There are too many people, is not that well organized, because simply it brings a bunch of people maybe for 3 days in a destination that doesn't have if you want to be technical, the carrying capacity to host it. And the day after, you see that the residents write a letter to the newspaper, the local newspaper, complaining, that get published, complaining on, oh, look what just happened. It was horrible. We are so mad at the politicians. That's not possible, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why? My first question is why this has to happen the day after, right? What happens in the past year, 6 months, when during the planning of the festivals? Why it's all of a sudden becomes a surprise that the complaint has to come up the day after on the newspaper, right? And this can be newspaper, can be Facebook, can be a blog, it can be, again, a social media post. This means that simply there was no communication before, right? So that probably the community was not involved, or probably local politicians didn't even have the tools to understand the impact of the festivals, or the festival organizers adopted a top-down strategy that did not really help, right? That didn't really help, it was not effective. So my question for you is, what can we do to avoid the day after newspaper letter where the locals complain, righteously so, right? Because if you don't sleep for 3 days because you have noisy people under your window screaming and dancing and singing and drinking for 3 days, you have to go to work on Monday, you're exhausted. So it creates conflicts, right? Increasingly, we are, I mean, I'm seeing like right now preparing the classes for my new students in hospitality and tourism, how many textbooks are starting to include terms such as tourismophobia or, negative attitudes towards tourists, because the locals are. So what can we do to avoid that? What if the festival, and I'm saying something super simple, but what if the festival is planned with the community, by the community, as always, and I say, and the people, if you already follow one of my workshop with Judy, you know that I'm obsessed with one term, that is system, and I keep repeating it, and probably Judy is tired of hearing me saying system, 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 but tourism systems is the key. To not have the day after letter on the newspaper, you need a system. System means that every dot in the network is taken into consideration. But unfortunately, and I love what Judy said before when we started this workshop earlier, that if money is the only goal and finding a sponsor is the only goal, what's going to happen is that not everyone will have the same weight, right, in the system. Because usually what happens is that the sponsor, the one with money, dominates the system. There is a hierarchy, while the system is exactly the opposite of a hierarchy, right? So what can we do? So I conclude my presentation here. What can we do to, it's very complex, right? We go from Lecco, that, and I can stop presenting. So we can go from Lecco, where you have the small filmmakers presenting their work, but the question is, again, is that enough? We had the opposite problems in Lecco, right? We were working like crazy as a nonprofit. We were all volunteers. The young people presenting their movies, going crazy, and then not that many people were coming to see this event, because we were not Milan. So how can we bring more tourists? It was successful, but we would have liked more, right? And cool that people from Hollywood moved to Island Park and kick out the residents and the local stores, and tourism become and the money of tourism goes in the in the pocket of wealthy businesses and chain that just open in Highland Park, rather than local businesses that will have been there forever. And at the same time, looking at my small town studies on over tourism and carrying capacity, how can we avoid festivals becoming the day after issue? And how can we prevent that? So those are my questions, and I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi from Bhutan. I'm from Bhutan, so it was very interesting. Your presentation. I've been also involved in. I work in tourism, and I founded one festival actually called Royal Highland Festival, but it was actually with not really for tourism. When it started, it was started for a climate action, and also
Exactly.
to protect the local culture and habits which were in a way diminishing, disappearing. So we started to create that festival to revive that. But then later on, it became of a tourist attraction. So I just wanted to share this in terms of that.
Sounds very interesting. And actually, yes, it's right. We did the same thing, right? Our goal was tourism because, of course, I was a tourism person in the film commission, but still, our goal was to promote the local. Your main goal was in the environment. Our goal was promote young workforce who needed a job. So tourism was not the first focus, but it's the automatic focus of festivals, right? So I think it's very interesting where we start from the motivations, and then that motivation, which is not just let's have a bunch of tourists coming, but in the end, it can happen. So that's very interesting, yes.
Yes.
And Michael, I see your question here in the chat, which I really like. So what strategies can be implemented to ensure that the benefits from this event are sustainable and not one-day benefit? That's great. This is why I say a system. So again, what I say is that the very important thing that we have to understand is that usually there are some cases in which you bring a sandwich from home, maybe, but usually you eat at the restaurant where the festival is. Festivals are just 3 days, and they have you have to stay overnight. So it's important. I just went to a conference, the Leisure Study Association in Scotland was very interesting because in the program, there were discounts in local businesses. So the idea was to promote, so go to another local business. So when you are here for the conference, and we can say for the festival, you can go eat something in this local business. We give you 20% discount if you say you are at the conference. Same thing can be done with a festival. You need to collaborate. You need to collaborate with the other local stakeholders that can show the beauty of that destination, of the attractions of that destination, and then word of mouth, right? So the people want to go back to that area even when there is no festival, or they can tell their friends that they want to take their families back. But if it's just festival center, so you put a bunch of people for 3 days inside a movie theater from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then they go home and you don't promote anything and you're just your focus is on the festival, that's not usually how it should work. So that could be a good idea. But as you know, this event are really also unpredictable. As I always say, sometimes a small town hosts a movie production and the movie get premiered, and the day after they are full of tourists, right? Full. They don't know what to do with tourists. And sometimes a small town hosts a super big movie production and no one goes there. Tourism is really unpredictable. So it's really hard to find to tell you the right formula. But if you collaborate with local stakeholders and you're not just centered or you're focused on your festival, could be good. And how can tourism industry strategically leverage cultural diversity? This is one of the biggest questions that I'm working on right now. Is first of all for stakeholders to understand that tourism that would be a good step. Like, is a diverse industry. So, and I'm still thinking, you have no idea how, as a sociologist. As a sociologist, I interview tourism professionals all the time. And you have no idea how many times there's the opening sentence from these professionals who have been working in the sector for 30 years is, oh, I love tourism and I love working in tourism because tourism is really the demonstration that there is a democratization of leisure. Everyone can do tourism. Tourism is a market for everyone. Everyone can be a traveler. And I'm like, no. What about wealth? What about privilege? What about people who don't feel safe for racism or sexism to travel? So no, tourism is not for everyone as it is now. But there is this misconception. So I really think that I'm increasingly seeing festivals that promote diversity, which is very important. Center on diversity as the main theme of the festival, and I think that's very important. But I'm seeing myself conducting interviews, and I can give you my experience as a sociologist interviewing experts. Still, there is this stereotype of this idea that tourism, as we know, I say that in the class, is a white Western concept, the tourism that we know and that we still, unfortunately, teach in schools, right? In my area, in the US and in Europe. And we have to understand that the nature itself of tourism is diverse, and we have to leverage this diversity. And the same thing is for festival tourism. After creating awareness of how to make tourism festivals sustainable, can local and possible governments be involved in making it mandatory follow-up to ensure the regions which the festival happens embrace and ensure sustainability? Here is really like policy level issues. I'm seeing that, for example, in the there are different, they really depend on the geographic region where you are. You have no idea how different it is to work in tourism in the United States compared to Europe. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. In the US, they're not that happy when I say that of good, not not unhealthy, meaning no corruption based, as it happens sometimes in Italy, unfortunately, and in other countries. Political intervention when it's good, when it's okay. For example, right, think of gentrification. We are trying to understand with the research we are doing right now in the historic west side of Las Vegas, which is a neighborhood that experienced segregation, and unfortunately is a disadvantaged neighborhood at the moment. What can so if we develop some kind, if we help develop some kinds of cultural tourism in that area, including festivals, what can we do to not have it become like Highland Park? That's a political intervention, right? What can we do to stop Starbucks, McDonald's, all this chain to come there and leverage local businesses? Local businesses need help, right? To be sustainable, the system, local businesses need help, need financial help, and institutions need to give them grants and so on to avoid being, the area to be taken over by these big chains, for example. So I think there's a policy implication here, which is very complex, and it's the hardest thing ever. How do we promote cultural immersion in our travel experiences packages to promote the communities? I think this goes back to what we were saying before. If we have, it's very important that these packages become systems where everyone is involved. This is what I think. I like the word packages that you use, because the word packages often has as a stereotype, meaning that in Europe, package travel is they pick you up in your home, they take you to the airport, they take you to the resort. You have fun in the pool of the resort, you barely see anything around in the destination, and then you go back home and you're very happy, and you really didn't get in contact with the local culture or heritage or nature. And I think it's very important for package tours now to, as for festivals organizer, to develop the system. And the system does not work. And I know you're tired. Some of you are really tired of hear me say that, but the system does not work and you see, and I see that if every stakeholder, every subject including residents and including tourists as well, is not only included but invested in the whole experience. Michael, how can sustainable tourism practices be incorporated into promotion of festival music tourism? Okay, so I'm noticing one thing again, and I can talk from my research, right? I can talk from my research, from what I found in my research. That's all I can tell you. It's very important to promote sustainable practices for festivals and tourism. I like the small individual measures, such as recycling at the festivals, right? Or bring your bottles so we don't have to use the water bottle, or the use of solar panels in the area, whatever. But it's very important to understand that sometimes these can be viewed as piecemeal or band-aid approaches. Sustainability is really a systematic and systemic issue at the level of really at the macro level. So it's not enough. It's not enough. And this is what makes me mad sometimes. Organizers of events, including festival or hotel owners. Oh, okay, I bought solar panels. I have, I don't know, a recycling system. I'm good. I'm done. I did my part. That's it. No, sustainability is a global problem. The environmental crisis is a global problem. So this is why, to me, one of the main issues to me is that over tourism in Venice, right? Or in Barcelona or in these cities, you see the mayor of Venice, which is Venice is pretty small, right? Venice is very famous, but if you see, it's a pretty small city. So the mayor of Venice, this the mayor of this fairly small city having to deal with a global problem, right? Because you don't stop the air traffic, you don't. So what can we do? What can be done? This is why I would like more conversations on the piecemeal approach, the macro approach, and the micro approach and the macro approach, because they have to start communicating. Otherwise, it's not possible. Can festival be used as strategy to promote market tour operator activity? If so, how? I think that branding is a key word. If you become the city, like we have Palm Springs here that has the Coachella festival, for example, and they were able to brand. Palm Springs was already famous, didn't need Coachella to be famous, but they became the city of the area of Coachella, that area. And branding was very helpful. That said, Palm Springs is basically in the middle of the desert. The festival is in the middle of the desert. They don't have the same geographical constraints of a city like Venice, where carrying capacity is really an issue, as it can be in the desert too, don't get me wrong. But branding, sustainable branding, responsible branding, right? I love the fact that I spoke with we have Red Rock Canyon here in Las Vegas, a beautiful park with beautiful red rocks in the desert, and they have too many people. The problem, what is the problem? Is that there is this branding, Red Rock. The rocks are really red. The rocks are really beautiful. And tourists who come to Las Vegas, they're going to see Red Rock. Do we have other beautiful parks? But I don't have the Red Rocks. That is the brand, right? The Red Rock. So they don't go. It's very hard to tell those tourists, hey, don't go to Red Rock, go to this other park, which is equally beautiful. No, they want to see that. So I was interviewing the organizers and I told them, what can we do about that? And they told me, we should do more responsible branding. We should find strategies to promote, yes, the brand of Red Rock Canyon, but make it more sustainable and more responsible. So, and that is something that it's in the area of marketing and destination branding professionals, something they should think about. I don't see any more questions here.
So yeah, thank you so much, Marta. I think those were the questions that were pre-asked by the potential participants and them that are here. Maybe I'll open this floor if there is anybody in the meeting with a burning questions and they were not able to put them down in the chat, and they can unmute and pose them to you or to anybody, or to us as STTA. And thank you so much for the brilliant and insightful presentation. It is really from a professor.
Oh, thank you, Mami.
Any questions? If there isn't, Judy, take over.
Oh, thanks, everyone. Yeah, technology failed. I fell out at some point, but I believe Marta was answering the questions. Marta, thank you very much. Always inspiring to hear you talk about culture, film festival. I like how you present them. And today we are here talking about festivals, and you have raised many significant issues other than what we had said at the beginning. The whole idea of gentrification that can be introduced in small places because of festivals. After COVID, we all know that festivals come with huge health risks today. And when you're organizing a festival, you have to be careful about the health risks and the things that we're supposed to take. And some communities are probably not ready yet, even for festivals at this time, because COVID exposed the huge inequalities in between places and even in tourism destinations. And so communities and destinations, some of them are asking, is it worth the risk? Because when we have another COVID situation, we are on our own. We have, you have brought out policy challenges with festivals, tourism, how decisions are made. Sometimes they are macro made from top-down approach, and the people at the bottom have no say. They suddenly have to deal with a festival, which the people at the top thought was a great idea for our destination. So we have issues of policies that are not aligned with the situations and conditions on the ground, but are more oriented towards creating an experience for a certain market. I think in the chat, I saw somebody talk about pollution, the carbon footprint of these events, and whether anybody thinks about them. Sometimes cities have got to deal with waste. And I know the city of Kisumu is going to deal with waste after this Festec festival. I'm not sure how that was planned for, but I've been around this morning and I've seen too much plastic. I have seen at the event places, the venues where activities are happening, everywhere there is plastic water bottles. And for that happening, this kind of Festec Africa, which is like a festival for 7 days, then you can imagine the environmental impacts of these events on people. And there are many other things that we can talk about, the general disruptions that are there, the adulteration of the value of the principle in the first place, if it's got to be staged. And it's not within its original calendar, but now it's got to be staged at a time when a certain VIP or certain VIPs are available to attend them and to open them, which means they're no longer controlled by the... Michael had compiled some very interesting observations around festivals as we were preparing for this. And Michael was talking about the rise of wildlife festivals. Yeah, in Africa and in Asia, there is a rise of wildlife festivals, something that we didn't see in our traditional communities. But now we have big festivals like Kuta Izina, the naming of the gorillas. Kenya just followed suit after many years and seeing the success of Kuta Izina. Kenya started its elephant naming ceremony. It's still not as big as Kuta Izina, but it has started, and we don't know what it will look like and mean for Amboseli area, where it's been happening in the years to come. So, and there are many others. Namibia has a festival as well. So we are seeing the rise in the continent, particularly in safari destinations of wildlife festivals. Yeah, the film festival that is called Pride Lands, it's just about wildlife. So you can see how tourism is influencing the evolution of festivals. And like we said from the beginning, it is no longer, festivals are no longer for communities, but they are evolving into corporate events that are managed at the top level. We are not saying in this place that these festivals are not correct, because their objectives and their values are completely different, right? Yeah, their objectives and their values are completely different. The community that is involved is probably a community of interest, and not a community of place, as was with our traditional communal festivals that were managed and directed by communities of place. Now today you have a community of interest of people who value and love gorillas. And we have Kutaizina, others love elephants. And we have I don't know what Kenya is going to name it, but at the moment it's the elephant naming ceremony. And you've got others who love, so they are communities of interest, and they don't have to be in one place. They are all over. When you look at the Pride Lands Film Festival, it brings films from all over the world. So it's no longer a community of place, but it's a community of interest who are drawn together by interest. So what are we saying? That festivals that are organized by communities of place, right? Oh, it's a tembo naming. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing the tembo naming ceremony. So you find that festivals that were organized by communities of place are becoming fewer and fewer, and they're being infiltrated by other mega festivals. And we need to find a balance. I think what we're saying today is we need to find a balance, and that balance that we find must be acceptable, must be inclusive for everyone. If we have to create a bigger event than the traditional event that is anchored on the traditional event, then let's get the voice of the people in that event, and let's have considerations so that we don't, what do we say, we don't contaminate cultures, right? So yes, there's a lot of interesting conversation, and the whole questions around policy and how data is collected for festivals. I think we will agree that this data is not easy to collect. Despite there being so many festivals, when you look at the data, tourism, global tourism data, these are some of the ones that are relegated, and they're not the big areas that mega tourism is interested in. But I think we are also saying that if we are talking preservation of cultures in responsible tourism, and we are not paying attention to festivals, which are at the core of cultures. If I could share with you, let me see if I can share, so that you just see what cultures were for. This presentation was shared by Michael. So yeah. So you see that festivals, long before they became attractions for tourists, they were deeply embedded in cultural and social fabric of communities. Yeah, they served as powerful expressions of identity and unity. They were rooted in religious rituals, seasonal cycles, and that's why I was saying about the rain festival, the harvest festival, and they were communal traditions, right? They provided spaces for community bonding, for artistic expression, and that's why the communities had different attires, how they dressed up. And this enabled these cultures to be passed down through generations. So festivals were used to pass down cultures through generations. I just wanted to share that. I think that was some good summary on the background of cultures and what we have been discussing today. So when we talk about the opportunities for cultural preservation, we must begin to think seriously about festivals. We cannot, we may not be able to preserve cultures if we leave out festivals and the authentic festivals, because they are systems of passing knowledge. They're systems of sharing wisdom, rituals, and traditions. So thank you very much for being here. I don't know whether we have any other questions, but I think we have opened up a new area for those who are there, who are here. If you're students, this is a great research area, professors. I think there's a lot much more. If you're a policymaker and you're thinking of tourism diversification and making tourism more inclusive, you can start thinking differently about festivals. Many destinations, and I know including Kenya, we have no guidelines and standards for organizing festivals, right? So that is why every festival tends to look the same today. They tend to look so much the same that they are made up of speeches and speeches and speeches, and you're thinking to yourself, is this a festival or it's an outdoor conference? It's an outdoor conference. But yes, here we are, a new area, and not a new area, but an area of interest, yet to be explored in many different ways. We will take one or two last questions, then we will close our session. How then can festivals achieve a balance in cultural preservation while maintaining authenticity, given the nature of commercialization with festivals? I don't know what Marta will say, but I would say return to basics, return to the roots, ask the ones who know, right? Build festival tourism from the bottom. Don't build it from the top. Marta, do you have any other comments on that question?
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I really think that, yes, we cannot like keep commodifying culture, right? Culture constantly as a product for sale, for something like we have to start from, as you say, Judy, the people who know about culture and ask them, rather than sometimes I have, as you said, sometimes I have the idea that events are created ad hoc for other reasons, such as, yeah, who's gonna attend it, or how to make more money. And I think that's not the right solution. And especially the community doesn't feel respected. They know, the community knows they don't feel respected. So do you really want to achieve a balance, as you say in your question, right? In cultural preservation while maintaining authenticity? I mean, the community knows. The community is preserving the authenticity. So ask the community and live, if possible, erase all these top-down, forced, induced events that are not really going anywhere, but for someone else, usually from outside, making money.
Thank you so much for that contribution, Marta. Okay, somebody has a comment. Just to complement, the festivals are the key influences that diminishes tourism seasonality and tenaciously tourism of a given region. From your point of view, what do you think? Oliver, could you just unmute yourself and speak? I've lost the second part of your questions, of your question or your comments. Because you say festivals and other events are the key influences that diminishes tourism seasonality, which means, are you saying they act as bridges between tourism seasonality? Maybe that's what you're saying, I don't know. But if that's what you're saying, I think that tourism seasonality should not even exist, because it's a creation. It's a creation of systems, like Marta likes talking about systems, and it's a system that can be changed, right? It's a system that can be changed. And I can say for sure, I don't know whether this is going to last, whether it's rebound tourism or it's going to last, but we have seen in Masai Mara, for example, seasons have been broken. Camps that used to close between March, April, May are open throughout the year. There are very few seasonal camps now in the Mara. Camps and lodges are opening throughout the year. So this seasonality was based on when foreign tourists would come. But now we have domestic tourism and regional tourism, and we have so many people taking short breaks after very few months. So we don't need to wait for one season for tourism. So seasonality has already been broken by lifestyles. It's already been broken by increased disposable income that enable people to plan and take many small holidays instead of waiting to take one big holiday that created the seasonality in tourism. I think the attractions have been broadened. People are traveling for many other reasons to the same destinations. People are not only traveling to the Mara now, because Mara's seasonality was defined by the Great Migration. But now people are not traveling to Mara just for the migration. They're traveling throughout the year because they want to take a break. Yeah, people are traveling for self-restoration, and they can choose many different destinations. But Oliver, if you can speak, I don't know whether I answered your question. I wasn't attempting to answer because I didn't understand the second bit, but I was just making a commentary based on what you said. Anybody else wants to say something? Otherwise, if not, then we will call this a day, and thank you very much for joining us. Kefa or Lual, a statement or a question? We down to how many minutes, Michael? 5 minutes before we close. So Kefa, go ahead.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much. Just a quick one. You highlighted that there is a lot of similarities in festivals in the local tourism industry. So I'm curious, comparing internationally, Marta was talking about festivals like Coachella, and then, so those are music folk festivals. There's also Tomorrowland. If you compare them, you will find that they are more or less the same, but they have a huge impact and success. How can we emulate that locally as well?
Okay, I hope somebody else can also help to answer this question. I was saying that because earlier on, I don't know whether you were here. If you go to the Mamboleo Stadium in Kisumu now with the Festec Festival, and you see the stalls, they all have Ankara clothes and they all have Maasai beadwork, and they all have everything that just looks exactly the same as I would go to a festival in Narok of the Ma, and I would find those same people with those same items. You can almost feel like you are in the Maasai markets in Nairobi, right? Where you go and find everyone selling everything at the same time. That is what it felt like. I didn't go in there and I felt like it's an African festival or even a Kisumu or even a Western Kenya people's festivals. No, because we are not bead people. Western Kenya people are not bead people. But everybody's selling something that is beaded. Everybody's selling some Ankara piece of something, whether it's a bag, whether it's a shirt, whether it's a cloth, whether it's whatever it is, it's almost looking the same everywhere. And I think that's what I mean by these festivals are becoming trade shows. Yeah. They're becoming more places for small traders who sell cultural crafts to come and showcase their craft. And I said earlier on that there's nothing wrong with having the integration of trade, but there must be an identity. Kefa, every festival must have its unique identity. Even if it's a film festival, what is the unique identity of this film festival?
I completely
agree.
Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead.
So I completely agree. I think it's very important. Like, as I told you, branding is everything, right? In today's travel market, branding, like it or not, is everything. But we're seeing this, we use the term in sociology, McDonaldization, right? This standardization of branding where everything has to be the same and everything has to have the same standards. And I think that the beauty instead is diversity, right? So you can see this. You don't want you don't want festivals to look the same all the time and always, because this is something that just works and make you make more money. I think it's very important again get inputs from the community, and you'll see that they can help with that. But yes, you're seeing this homologation of festivals and branding, which. And I think that, as Judy was saying, every festival should be unique.
Okay. Okay, thanks, people. I see some other people have already left. Normally we have 1.5 hours, and we have just reached our 1.5 hour mark. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the questions sent in advance. Thank you for the engagement during the presentation. Like Nyege Nyege Festival, Beneath the Baobab happens in Kilifi every year. They have a unique identity. Oh yeah, thank you, Joanne, for that. Yeah, it's got its unique identity. I will try and attend it. Yeah, I will try and attend it the next time just to know what goes on there. But I have done the one that happens in Southern Nyanza. And yeah, it's a mix of everything. They try to be authentic, but they also have their own challenges. But thanks everyone for sharing, for caring, for being here, for exchanging knowledge. And we hope that these conversations inspire you to carry on the conversations in your own spaces and in your work and everywhere else where you engage, so that we can find lasting solutions. We love the festival. We would love them to stay. We just want them to be responsible. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bye
everyone. Bye.
Thank,
Bye.
thank you. Bye. Yeah. Thank you.